Everybody, Jason Burmis here, and as you know, every other week I am joined by the Action4Assange crew as they do a vigil for Julian Assange every single week. And what we like to do here is kind of co-broadcast that every other week, at least the first hour, so then you can go over to their YouTube channel, and I'll encourage you to do that right now, Action4Assange, and they go for like 3 or 4 hours on this issue. This is an issue that is near and dear to my heart. They have great guests like Patrick Henningsen, Ray McGovern, and others. Obviously, these people to me are at the forefront of defending free speech, and I kind of feel like it's an honor for me to kind of co-broadcast and host an hour every other week on this subject. If you want to support them, by the way, you can go to Action4Assange.com, and they're going to be covering the extradition hearings on the ground. And, you know, before we get into it with them about the fact that, you know, first of all, why are we even extraditing this guy? And what about all the war crimes that this man helped expose? I really want to talk about this counterintelligence report, okay? And, you know, how it's a very open report. We did a full video on it. We read the first few pages of it. But look how dangerous it is. First of all, when I see the word leaktivist, that screams of being made up. Does anybody else think that that sounds like it's made up to you? Leaktivist? What exactly is a leaktivist? You mean a leaker? So now if you leak something, if you're a whistleblower, you're a leaktivist? Hacktivists? And this is the most important. Public disclosure organizations also pose significant threats. Okay? They're putting them in the same category as Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Hezbollah, ISIS, and Al-Qaeda. This is a real problem. And when you do this, you not only demonize groups like Julian Assange's WikiLeaks, but any other group which would try to rise up and publicly disclose information that is truthful and shows how the media, military, industrial complex, the technopoly, the empire, the predator class really works. Because it goes beyond just those Abu Ghraib leaks, those black site leaks, the stuff that Manning provided. It goes beyond even the Panama Papers. What does it go beyond? Well, it goes into even the OPCW leaks right now, showing their relevance. And thumbs this video up. Make sure you're subscribed, guys. I'm losing subscribers all over the place this week, maybe because I'm speaking harsh realities, but I really need your support. So make sure you're thumbs up, you're following. You've gone to the WikiLeaks page. You've downloaded these PDF files. You are asking others why it doesn't seem to be a big deal that you and I witnessed a media in this country promote a false flag that our administration also promoted, where we saw videos of children crying in hospitals, all wet, saying that Assad had gassed his own people. And yet it's 100% been proven false, and no one's talking about it. Nobody. You know who is talking about it? And the reason the conversation is back? WikiLeaks, a public disclosure organization. So in about 5 minutes, we're going to be joined by Andrew, Steve from Slow News Day. What a great channel that is. If you're not subscribed to Slow News Day, you need to as well. Christy, Taylor, and as well as Dak Rillo. And Dak is one of these guys that harkens back to the olden days when you would grab a camera and you would ask a candidate a real question, and then you would put that information online, but there's no big outlets that play that anymore. There is no real alternative media. Stephen Chase asks, what pisses me off the most are the Trump supporters not up in arms about Trump's support for this. Do they not remember who helped him get elected? Exactly. And, people get upset that I point out that this document, which is unclassified, this report, is literally not only signed off on Trump, but that he actually invokes the idea that Russia remains a significant intelligence threat to the United States interests, employing aggressive acts to instigate and exacerbate tensions and instability in the United States, including interfering with the security of our elections. He's literally using the same propaganda line that the left used to try to impeach this man. What the Mueller report was all about. And, again, I've been showing the Mueller report here as well because that's extremely important. Why is that important? Well, the Mueller report shows you beyond a reasonable doubt that they weren't interested in the truth. They were never interested in the truth. Okay? If they were interested in the truth, then they would have told you the truth about Seth Rich. Instead, both Assange and Seth Rich and their relationship is completely obfuscated. And instead, they say it's promoting conspiracy theories. And then if you look, and the investigative methods are hidden from you. And now we know that these people lied to the FBI. So Seth Rich, there we go. How did that happen? Next. Why is Seth? You got to be kidding me. How did that happen? No. Yeah, exact matches. They only mentioned him twice. WikiLeaks. And notice this, investigative techniques, right? There's a lot of blackouts in this investigative techniques. Remember they said they had no files on Seth Rich? Wow. Well, that's interesting. And now they want both Matt Couch and Aaron Rich want Assange's testimony, and yet the judge doesn't want Assange's testimony. And this is in the Mueller report. So this goes deep, homeboys. Shout out to Sam Tripoli and the gang. So yeah, I think I'm gonna log in now, guys. We are going to start broadcasting with the gang over at Action4Assange. Let's go right here, and we're gonna duck this out. Bam, and we are going to join live. We do it live here. So let's see. Boom. And then open Zoom meetings. Da-da, da-da-da. Takes a second, takes a village. Join with video. We'll bring that right over here. And join with computer.
Their intellectual conscience. Because if you are unaware and uninformed about a case that has been going on for 10 years now, a federal case that has attracted international attention, then I cannot take you seriously as a political commentator. And furthermore, let me just point this out. I can't speak to Deval Patrick, but Cory Booker is a close friend of Hillary Clinton's. Cory Booker was on Hillary Clinton's short list for vice president in 2016. I believe he knows everything about Julian Assange, and he is more than conversant with his persecution. Secondly, Tom Steyer, it turns out, is a close friend of John Podesta, who was, of course, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager in 2016. WikiLeaks actually released, as part of their DNC purge in 2016, they showed that Tom Steyer and John Podesta were exchanging recipes for spaghetti sauce. So they were obviously on pretty friendly terms. So again, I can't believe that Tom Steyer doesn't know anything about Assange's case. I think that these people are quite familiar with the issue, and they just don't want to comment on it because they believe it would be political suicide. So we basically have hideous answers no matter which way you look at it.
Right. And do we want to play some of Dak's videos right now, or do we want to, or do we want to hold off? You could find all of this footage on Dak's YouTube channel at Dak. You could follow him on Twitter at Dak Rouleau. Your YouTube channel is Dak Rouleau as well, I believe.
Yep.
And then also, Dak, can you let everybody know quickly before we introduce our next guest, can you let everybody know where they can find you on social media, on all platforms, and then also where they can access your work?
Well, like you said, they can find me at Dak Rouleau on Twitter. My YouTube channel is Dak Rouleau. I'm at overwritten.org, and that's where we have all the chronicles of the presidential candidates archived. Now, yeah, so the work is basically done. All the candidates have closed up shop and left New Hampshire. So unless Michael Bloomberg becomes the Democratic Party nominee and returns to New Hampshire, it's unlikely that I'll be talking to any of them again in the future. But if the opportunity arises to put a public figure on the spot about the Assange case, I certainly will. Now, before I go, since my time is coming to an end, it would seem, I just wanted to say that one of your co-hosts, Christy Doff, and I are going to be launching our own YouTube show shortly. It's going to be called The Overwritten Report. Every week, we're going to be covering issues, not just the Assange case, but also a lot of issues with mass media propaganda, seeing how the public is being misled and manipulated in order to fit them into the box that will be to the establishment's benefit. And we're going to be launching that starting next week, date and time to be determined, but that's something that we can look forward to. That'll be streamed on my YouTube channel at Dak Rouleau, and we will see you all again.
All right, Dak, thank you so much. Very exciting news. I'm sure Christy will let us know more about that near the end of the show. Very exciting. Congratulations to you guys. So now I want to introduce our next guest, friend of the vigil, Jason Burmas. All of us have appeared on his show. Big supporter of Julian Assange, big advocate for free speech and a free press. Jason, how are you?
Very good. And I just want to say that Dak just continues to impress. I was following his stuff over the last week or so, and his post with the angry gentleman that thinks that Tulsi Gabbard is an agent of Poot Poot. And I just want to say, keep it up, man, because we have to hold these people's feet to the fire. And even if those videos are getting a dozen views or only a few hundred views, eventually they're going to break through. Sometimes it takes time. And just because it's not big now doesn't mean that we can't force someone like Bernie Sanders, who seems to be the inevitable front runner, to make a statement on Assange.
Absolutely. So I know that we now want to switch gears here and we want to touch on an article, an AI article, or about AI specifically in the UK government. I'm going to hand this over to Andrew, who has really been on these sorts of issues.
Yeah, thank you very much. So recently, over the weekend, we covered the situation surrounding what the UK is doing in regards to facial recognition, and particularly the UK Metropolitan Police. And then this right here, it's just a brief snippet that kind of goes into what's actually been happening, because the UK government's rolled out a lot of artificial intelligence programs without public knowledge. And this kind of just drives into the total lack of transparency that the UK government has in relation to disclosing the use of AI against its citizens. And in particular, how it's just a gross violation of human rights, privacy, literally a violation of almost every civil liberty you can imagine, to the point that these systems have the ability to identify someone as they're just walking down the road and then send them a ticket, and then 60% of the time to 80 or even 90% of the time in some cases, those recognition systems are completely wrong. So I think as these dystopian systems get rolled out, it's really important to call them out as it's happening. And a lot of times at this point in history, it's in real time as we're seeing these AI programs being deployed against the public.
And facial recognition goes even far beyond right now what's in real time. Obviously, this harkens to the social credit score in China, Andrew. But there was a story this week where offline photos are also available to a lot of these facial recognition programs that were once put up and kind of scraped from the internet, but available in these large archives, letting you know that this track trace database system has been basically built upon for some time and is now being initiated.
Yeah, and it's all by intimate design here too. We saw just on, I believe it was January 24th, the UK launched their facial recognition system. That's literally 1 month ahead of schedule before Julian Assange gets put on trial, when there's tons of protesters gathering and getting in the streets for that event. So all of this is coordinated to get people into that track trace database society. So eventually, when the time comes, they can just kick the doors in and drag us out of our own homes.
I mean, you look at Wuhan, China, and the thing that scares me the most is that that is actually happening, and that they have actually quarantined over 50 million people. And there's a YouTube channel up there called Last Messages that's basically just posting a lot of this, cell phone footage. It's terrifying. Depending on what you believe the severity of this virus is, to me, the scariest thing is that you have ghost cities that once housed 24 million people just several weeks ago, that you have videos of authoritative figures stomping indoors and tearing people out of their homes, out of their cars, using excessive force. And I think this is why it's so important that we maintain some semblance of free speech in this country, because they can't share the information on a mass level. These are just the leaks we're seeing. If we ever get to that point, who's to say that doesn't come here and to the Western world?
Well, and this is stuff out of like a 20-year-old James Rollins book. This is from what it looks like, a 100% manufactured virus. It looks like it was perhaps intentionally released. There's all kinds of things, Jason, that should raise a bunch of red flags about this. First of all, the Chinese government falsely claiming where it originated from. And that was something that they came out with that it seemed like they were prepared to answer. No, every time you learn a little bit more about it, it opens up a giant bag of questions.
I just know authoritarianism when I see it, and scary authoritarianism. And when, again, you can be on the streets and be ripped out of your car with what it seems like almost lethal force because they decided that you had a virus or you had a symptom or you were filming something you weren't supposed to. I watched a video not only of someone, I mean, these videos are incredible, have their cell phone ripped out of their hands and then them thrown in jail. But earlier, yesterday, I watched video of, I wasn't sure what was going on. You saw the police surrounding somebody who was welding doors shut. Welding doors shut to, I don't know, a skyscraper at least 15, 20 stories high. I'm like, what's going on here? 20 minutes later, the thing is up in flames. Why are you welding the doors shut? Who is in there? I mean, this is a frightening reality. And there are 1.1 billion people there, almost, 3 to 4 times the population here. And they're successfully suppressing information about how that population is actually being treated. And it should frighten everybody. It should frighten everybody that this new national counterintelligence report is out there where if you're a public disclosure organization or you're a hacktivist or a term I've never heard in my life, a leaktivist. So now if you're a whistleblower and you've leaked something, or you're an organization like WikiLeaks that publishes this stuff, you're on par with ISIS, Hezbollah, and Al-Qaeda, and bad actors like Cuba and North Korea. It's unbelievable.
Could you pull that article, or not even the article, but the actual document itself up?
Yeah, let's
you
do
did
it.
A great video on it earlier, so I want to point people back to that one. But just to talk about it a little bit, because as you were reading through this earlier, it was really, really dramatic to me because it literally sounds exactly like what we're trying to do and the change we're trying to bring through local organizing efforts, public awareness campaigns, organizing protests.
Well, again, if you look at this, right, this part is not even part of the report. This is the cover letter that is signed off on by who? The President of the United States of America, Donald Trump. And in this, it talks about hackers and public disclosure organizations, as I have highlighted. But what maybe is even scarier is that he runs the propaganda line that Russia could employ aggressive tactics to instigate and exacerbate tensions and instability in the U.S., including interfering with the security of our elections. And again, that's signed by the President of the United States, the guy that loved the WikiLeaks, couldn't get enough of the WikiLeaks. When you get to the first page of the actual report, let's go down one more. Here's the contents, but the first page, in the same sentence, they are equating, again, Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Hezbollah, ISIS, and Al-Qaeda with hacktivists, leaktivists, and public disclosure organizations. And now we're not talking about, things that are unconstitutional. They're talking about what? The interests of the United States, which to me is a wide variety of things, Andrew, and very, very subject to interpretation.
We actually had Patrick Kensington on week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and we actually went in really in depth talking about the actual wording and the use of the term national interest, because up until this point they were using the term national security, which is broadly accepted by people, meaning we're not going to be attacked by X, Y, and Z organization. But in this last few months, we've seen a literal wording shift from national security to national interest, which, if you look into it, literally just says what is in the financial interest of the United States. And when you boil it down and look at it in that direction, they're literally saying, what is the predetermined policy of the United States to ensure that our political elite can make the most money possible? And what that boils down to is fascism. That is the merger of corporate and political power to create a state in and of itself. And that's something that I feel like needs to be called out, because the word national interest literally just says the people who are here to take your money and spend it on themselves.
Killer, brother. I mean, you're absolutely right, and we've had that for some time. I mean, if you read Confessions of an Economic Hitman, you understand that these are the types of things that we've been employing over the decades. But now they're going full throttle. They have not only cut the throat of free speech, but they're preparing to bring it overseas for everybody to see and make a show trial like no other. And this is the next step. This is the plan, 2020 to 2022. Cyber activists, hacktivists, leaktivists, public disclosure organizations, they are the new terrorists.
That's what Julian Assange's case is going to hinge around, as far as the State Department is concerned. That Julian Assange is a cyber terrorist. They're going to do everything they possibly can to get it away from, does a publisher have the right, as has been determined by Judge Kettle in the DNC lawsuit, a number of other cases. Does a publisher have a right to print information the government doesn't like? Fuck yes, they do. But the State Department would rather, as you said, put on a show trial, which is, by the way, the biggest press freedom trial in our lifetimes. Probably anybody watching right now, your entire lifetime, this is the biggest press freedom trial. And we are not hearing enough about it. Slowly, there are journalists that are more mainstream talking about it, but it's a whisper in a storm. And we need the exact opposite of that to happen, Jason.
I couldn't agree more. I know that you guys got some other articles over here that you want to go over, but before we do that, I just want to tell my audience right now to go over to Action4Assange.com and make sure you support these guys. And after this, over at Action4Assange, where they're going to be continuing the vigil, make sure you're subscribed. Does somebody want to tell my audience what you guys have planned for the extradition hearing now that you have you've raised the funds? Half of you are going to go to D.C., the other half out to London and cover this. You know, what are the plans, guys?
I'll speak on behalf of what's happening in London. I'll be headed out there to cover this extradition hearing. I will be working with others in London. I'm actually leaving a week tomorrow. It's hard to believe, but I will. I will mainly be covering things that are taking place outside of the courtroom. I will not have access into the courtroom, but I will be in touch with those who do. And then I will just be doing, live tweets, updates, video footage to be posted somewhere on YouTube or a different streaming platform. Still making those last those final decisions exactly where that content will be, but I will be covering that on the ground from London. And then Christy and Andrew could speak to what's taking place here at home in DC.
Oh, I'll jump in here real quick, because I had planned on going to London, and 4 months into my passport application, I finally got a hold of somebody at the State Department, and they had flagged my passport application.
No!
Happened?
Let's talk about that. Talk about it.
What happened was, in 2001, I went to a widespread panic show, and I was standing underneath an awning in a rainstorm with a couple other people who were standing underneath an awning in a rainstorm. We had backpacks on, And there were 3 cops on bicycles that came up and hemmed us in. And by the time they were done running our pockets, I had about a half a dozen hits of ecstasy in my pocket that I did not have before those cops threw me up against the wall. I'm in Athens, Georgia, by the way. Flash forward 3 months. They kept us in this jail for 3 months before they would let anyone go to court. And then they had everyone plead no contest and kicked us out of the state of Georgia. I wasn't allowed in the state of Georgia for 15 years. I didn't miss it. But that was part of the condition. Now, 5 years ago, that had been expunged. And I brought this up to the State Department, and they said, well, it's something that you can, you can question it or challenge it, but for the time being, your passport's flagged.
Unreal, man. Well, good luck, because that's a shitty story. So you can't make it to DC?
Okay, I understand that there are probably oversights in the State Department, it being a giant bureaucracy, mostly full of self-serving careerists who would let something slip, by undetected. I mean, it's within the realm of possibility, but it feels a little intentional, given why we were traveling and what we're going to be covering.
Sounds good. Christy, you want to tell us what your plans are in DC?
Yeah, so we have actions planned Monday through Friday of the first week of the extradition hearing of Julian Assange. So Monday we will be marching from the White House to Trump Tower to the DOJ. Tuesday is our media day, and we will be announcing different media outlets that we will be peacefully protesting and letting them know that if they do not speak up for Julian Assange, that they might be next. As far as indictments coming along the way to other journalists for practicing journalism. On Wednesday, we are planning to be at the detention center where Chelsea Manning and Jeremy Hammond are being held. Thursday, we will be at Capitol Hill, and we've been reaching out to congressmen and women to ask them to also come out and stand up for Julian Assange, stand up for free speech, and stand up for free press. And then Friday, we are planning to go back to the White House and Trump Tower and DOJ. On Thursday and Friday, I do believe we are going to have the truck with the Assange and Chelsea Manning sign with us, around town with us. So we're really excited about that. We are planning different actions, and we're going to be streaming with Taylor in London. I'm trying to go back and forth as the court hearing progresses, see what we can find out, do different interviews. And yeah, we've got a lot of content planned throughout the week.
Sounds awesome. I'm really hyped up. I hope you guys are going to be live streaming as much as possible as well.
Yes, we will be.
I know DC, they will be able to. I'm not 100% sure if I will be able to from London. I think that we intend on doing so. And I'm going there a few days early before the hearing begins so I can test out all of my equipment and make sure that I can live stream. And then I'll also be going to Imperialism on Trial event Tuesday, which is going to be really interesting. I'll be live tweeting that. And yeah, so that's what we'll do. But I know for sure, DC, they can live stream. And if you are in the US and you can make it to DC, join us. Because it's really important to show support for Julian. And I'm sure that my co-hosts had encouraged everybody to join in on these efforts.
Absolutely. I'm looking for your GoFundMe on here. Here it is, the extradition hearing. Bam. Perfect timing. So if my audience wants to help, you guys have raised $5,100. Every dollar goes to a good cause. And again, they're going overseas. They're going to DC. They're bringing light to this issue. It is so, 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 so important because, again, the predator class, the media military industrial complex, it moves forward and most people are not paying attention. And there are not even whispers in the mainstream media right now about what's going on with Assange. Instead, we're being bombarded with Amy Klobuchar and Pete Bootlicker and the end of Grandma Oatmeal and Joey B's senility finally catching up to him. And yeah, that's great. But a lot of it's sensationalized and it's going to pass. And we knew that all of these establishment politicians couldn't come to power. What's going to remain is the implications of not only what's happened to Assange, currently happening to Assange, but what could happen to him in the coming weeks.
Hey, Jason, actually, for your viewers, if you guys are in the New York area, in New York City, there's going to be an event held by the Courage Foundation at CUNY School of Law. I can't remember the exact what the meaning is behind that acronym, but if you go to Courage Foundation's Twitter account, you can find information about that event where they're going to have a panel of journalists and attorneys speak about the prosecution of Julian Assange. I went to the one in DC. I will be attending the one this Saturday at 2 p.m. at the law school in New York City. So do attend. It should be really interesting.
Excellent.
And I will be in DC too.
Well, dude, I might come. Are you guys starting on Monday, you said? This coming Monday?
Yeah. I was going to say, you have a GoFundMe.
not this
If you
coming,
could
the
put your
following.
link up too, Jason, because I think that would be awesome if you could join us.
Well, I've told my audience that if we hit the 2K mark by Monday morning, I'll make it down there sometime next week. It's about a 5-hour drive, and I'll have to rent a car and obviously do the hotel thing and blah, blah, blah. But like I said, to my audience, if we do somehow hit $2,000 to the $5,000 before Monday morning, I'll do all that. I'll join these guys for at least a day, maybe 2, and we'll live stream all day if we can.
That would be
Our
amazing,
audience,
Jason.
if you want to help Jason, please, go do that because we'd like to hang out with him.
Well, now you guys are sweet. That's so nice of you guys. No, it'd be great to have a beer with you guys in person. We talk about all this heavy shit on the air, but that's the thing. We're all real people. Don't we all want to be able to relax and not have to worry about, the Chinese Gestapo tearing us out of our homes? That's another thing that's not been featured on this. Think about this. All these people are quarantined. Who's to say this isn't an opportunity to get some bad people on that social credit score, to go after some political dissidents, to maybe it's none of those things. Maybe they just like somebody's property or their business, and all of a sudden them and their family came down with the Wuhan flu. Is anyone ever going to question it? And all of that is enabled by the suppression of what we have here, which is our First Amendment, okay, and freedom of speech, and then that backed up by the fact if people fuck around too much, we go to the Second Amendment. Guess what? They can't. They're disarmed. They're brainwashed. They don't have freedom of speech. They're accustomed to censorship. They're accustomed to a great leader. I hope that never comes here. And it's so important that we don't allow, again, the extradition of a foreign citizen, the popularization that a group that discloses truth through public documents is a terrorist organization. Yet here we are at 2020, where I just read that and it was signed off by the Make America Great Again folks.
And one thing too, with last messages, because it's something that I watched and it's something that I've showed a couple friends. It's not the easiest thing in the world to watch. And I don't want to think that anyone thinks that we're saying it is or isn't something. And don't believe what the words that it's saying on the screen are necessarily either. Just make your own opinions and judgments. The biggest thing about it too is, and this is a question I posed to my friend last night, how did we find out about Tiananmen Square? And the answer was because there was someone there to report it. And a lot of what is happening in the media right now, whether it's national or international, is easily manipulated unless there's a real actual person there on the ground to report it, because we don't get real information from mainstream sources anymore. It's pretty much entirely propaganda at this point. So don't be afraid to be a journalist. Don't be afraid to pull out your camera and show people what you're seeing in the world, because right now shit's crazy.
100%, man. And I couldn't agree with you more to ignore what's on the screen, because, there's a lot of context missing from these things. But I don't know how much context I need when I see a bunch of people in masks walking through the streets with chains surrounded by law enforcement. I think the context of that visual is enough for me. And again, people should have discernment. I haven't been one of those people that have said, there's a pandemic and it's going to take out the world. The zombie apocalypse is coming. We've heard these things again and again, but this one is the first time we've seen a government or a state suppress so many people and instill fear in a populace and essentially hammer down with a martial law like I've never seen in my life.
And if you try and speak out about it, If you try and post about Twitter about it, they'll ban you like they did Zero Hedge. They got yanked under what, harmful speech or something, and then their whole presence was gone in the blink of an eye. And that's in the same week that Elizabeth Warren rolled out her plan to combat online disinformation, that Twitter was banning parody, that the option to have someone mass reported for specifically political misinformation. It was all in that same week, gearing up towards the biggest press freedom trial in freaking history.
And remember, Twitter,
broad daylight. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Twitter this past week changed their terms of service. It goes into effect March, but there's a new term for leakers. They're leaktivists, aka terrorists. And now there's a new term for fake news, and it's synthetic media. And they have this new thing where synthetic media is essentially, well, did they edit it? I don't know. Did I run something at slow-mo 50% for dramatic effect? Is that synthetic media? Like, what are we actually talking about? And
Can we all take a moment of silence real quick to think about what George Carlin would have to say about this? Like, just a brief one. Like, Brother George, man, synthetic media, national interest, the fact that imminent threat doesn't mean imminent threat or anything related to a threat whatsoever. It can be something, it's a feeling, Jason. It's a feeling deep down in your soul or your gut or wherever you figure out that this is where you need to bomb brown people. Right there, that place that says, I'm a scared and I'm going to do something about it.
I love everything you said right there, and you're not wrong. Imminent threat doesn't mean imminent threat. Does it even mean a threat? I mean, one of the things I've done this week over on the channel is I played a debate from 2007. Presidential debate. It was in July. It was in the run-up to the 2008 election. It was significant for a few reasons, okay? Number one, it was the first ever YouTube debate where people actually sent their questions in via YouTube, and not only did they really start with every single candidate up there, including the all-stars, Joey B., Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama, all having a real plan to get us out of Iraq, but everybody else up there too. Within a year, 6 months, the only people that were actually, real about it were Dennis Kucinich and Mike Gravel. Mike Gravel tried to run this year. The establishment really wouldn't let him. Dennis Kucinich is one of the few people that's, was anti-war then and is anti-war now, and I'll tell you the truth. Everybody in between, the conversation has just changed so much. And remember, 3 of those people that were up on that stage that made those promises, you can watch it on C-SPAN right now. It's archived. They became the president, they became the vice president, and they became the Secretary of State. And while they were up there fear-mongering, saying that Mitt Romney and the Republicans would lead us into war with Syria and possibly Iran, who ran Operation Timber Sycamore and got us into Syria? Those 3 motherfuckers right there.
100%. I got a video you got to check out. It's slightly unrelated. And right before Gary Webb got assassinated, he went on to the Montel Williams show. And this is something I sent Josh, our tech guru, earlier. But it's like a full 40-some minute Montel Williams episode with him and Mark Levine and Representative Charlie Rangel and just some like complete evangelical douchebag. I can't remember his name. But the fact, Jason, that on daytime television, Gary Webb could come on and say, this is how I accidentally found out that the CIA was running drugs through America and they were doing it to destabilize specifically low-income neighborhoods. And he was able to have this conversation on daytime TV. Can you imagine somebody trying to do that in today's media environment? We are less free now than we were in 1993, 1994, when Montel Williams had daytime TV.
Yeah, no, you're right. I just today I got interviewed by Wired magazine, and they're doing a piece on the 15-year anniversary of Loose Change, right? And we were talking about media and how things could go viral then and they couldn't go now. And I said, look, man, back in the day, you know, before even everybody was using the internet. We're talking about 2005, 2006, 2007, you know, when it was the most viral. You had a Google video, but it was an email chain. It was instant messenger. You know, people were going that way. And then on the social media platforms that were around, like the MySpaces of the world, right? Because that was the most popular. There wasn't an aggregate or an algorithm to suppress any information. I go, now everybody's been relegated to these corporate sites like Twitter and Facebook, and there are algorithms to suppress anything like that going viral anymore. I go, so in a lot of ways, it was a lot easier then for us to get information out. Now, on the flip side to that, I said that same tool, you know, YouTube, Google, etc., allow me and you to broadcast this to the entire world in 1080p in real time. I got a decent production value here. You guys have a decent production value there. I can compete with the mainstream media. However, the algorithm literally has its fucking digital boot on my goddamn neck. And it will only allow me to breathe ever so slightly. So, you know,
So
I'm
something
trying to breathe.
exciting.
I'm trying to scream. And it's just, we got to use what we got. You know, Dak is out there. And I truly believe if Dak Rouleau, you know, was doing this 14, 15 years ago, he would have been viral 3 months ago. You know what I'm saying?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. And there'd be 80, 90 more people who are running around doing the exact same thing, because it is an inspirational thing that he's doing. It's something that more and more people should be doing. This isn't something, and they should be doing it to supporters, to campaign staff members, to sitting members of Congress, to bankers, to lawyers, to anybody that they possibly can. What is your stance on Julian Assange? How do you feel about Julian Assange? Should Julian Assange be pardoned? Should Julian Assange be extradited? This is something that we should be doing.
Steve,
State Department official.
Steve, slow down. Those were really, really complicated sentences. I mean, the people have been pretty dumb. Could you say them slower? I think there were like 5 words in each of them. I mean, you're fucking asking a lot, Steve. I mean, what
You can't
slow it
expect
down, like
presidential
what?
candidates to know about the biggest trial on press freedom in our generation. If of any of the generations that are alive right now, you can't expect presidential candidates to keep up on that kind of stuff.
So we actually have a really exciting announcement. We just recently launched our Discord, which it's basically like a new version of a forum, essentially, for helping the production value of the vigil, but also helping with in-person organizing. And one of our first groups that we have set up is actually the Free Assange Denver group has converted to being Denver Action4Assange. So we're super excited to start working with them. We got co-sponsored by a lot of organizations and endorsed by a lot of organizations for our DC events. We have Code Pink, we have Women Against Military Madness, we have Veterans for Peace. Popular Resistance is co-sponsoring us and a couple others. So what we're hoping to do, coming out of the first week of Julian's hearing, but before that second, third, and fourth week towards the end of May, beginning of June, is to set up like college teach-ins and town hall events and things like that. So if you're, and the idea is to connect the vigil here with a physical space there to get around the censorship that you were talking about, to be able to have these conversations with real people and stream us in person to have these conversations and to answer the hard questions that people have, because there is so much propaganda. So if you're someone that would be interested in helping us organize that, really all you need is a laptop, an HDMI cord, an internet connection, and a power supply. And we can help you organize different events if you want to set up teach-ins in your community or town hall events at a local organizing center. So if you're interested, check out our Twitter to get the Discord link and hop in there.
We also have Action4Assange Argentina and Action4Assange North Carolina. So we are expanding our branch, and we look forward to more people doing on-the-ground actions. Jason, I wanted to get your opinion on this. We know, and we spoke about this a little bit on the vigil earlier, but we know that we now have proof that the Sanders campaign does not have a stance on Julian Assange. And to me, this is indicative of a much larger issue, the fact that a U.S. presidential candidate is fearful because of the political consequences that may come from actually speaking up about this case. Do you see this as a systemic problem as well?
Well, I see it as a problem that the only person up there that really seemed to even address it in the proper manner was Tulsi Gabbard. The one thing I will say about Bernie Sanders is that before the mainstream media basically erased Gabbard from the picture, right? Didn't allow her into the New Hampshire debates. You saw Bernie and her kind of getting along. And you kind of hope that Bernie might choose her, if not as his vice presidential candidate, because I'll say it again, I'm going to piss my audience off, but if he announced her as her running mate, I may actually campaign for that guy. I could disagree with 90% of his platform, but I feel like that would be enough. But as I've said before, I've cursed the guy out on here. And it's not because I disagree with a certain policy or Medicare for all. It's because if you're not going to stand up for free speech, if you're not going to stand up for the disclosure of documents that prove that this war is unjust and it's part of this military-industrial complex that continually needs to be exposed, how can I even believe that you're really anti-war in the first place? No matter how you say you vote or how you say you feel. Again, if you're not going to stand up for Assange, and you're not even going to say the reality of the situation with the DNC leaks, with quote-unquote Russiagate, with the fact that we just had Aaron Rich and Matt Couch in one of those lawsuits involving Assange, request Assange to give a deposition in the lawsuit. Both parties, the people who were suing and the people being sued. You know who said no dice? The judge. The judge doesn't want that. So when the judge doesn't want Julian Assange to talk about those leaks in any courtroom whatsoever, what does that tell you? Even a civil courtroom. That's crazy. So we're in crazy town, and we need someone like Bernie Sanders, if he's going to be the front runner, to step up to the plate and talk about these issues. And until he does, there should be grave concern.
But the media might make fun of him. They might say bad things about him. The exact people that aren't going to vote for him or hold secret meetings to stop him and who are actively working to make sure that the primary is rigged so that this man doesn't get into office, they might not vote for him.
Well, let me say this, Steve, I've been hammering this home the past couple days on my channel because I think it's important. But when we look at, for instance, the Mueller report right here, and the mentions of WikiLeaks and Julian Assange and Seth Rich, well, they're few and far between, but they're all in the same spot, okay? And they're basically trying to say that WikiLeaks is peddling conspiracy theories, even though every document they've ever put is real. They initially said there was no investigation or files on Seth Rich, yet investigative techniques were blacked out in this section heavily. And just last week, what did we find out? We found out not only was there documentation from the FBI on Seth Rich and company, but that documentation was requested by Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. These are all facts. The FBI's been lying the entire time, and there's not a peep about it where? On Fox News.
Was that the Judicial Watch report?
That one right there that I just highlighted? No, that was the actual Mueller report. That's the Mueller report. So in the actual Mueller report, when they reference Julian Assange, WikiLeaks, and Seth Rich, it's all in the same section. It's to defame Assange and call him a conspiracy theorist. It's to cover up their investigative techniques of how they found out. It completely coincides with that leaked phone call where Seymour Hersh says that there was an FBI file on him. Okay, that's been covered up. We now have more confirmation of that through the Judicial Watch documents you're talking about, the Peter Strzok and Lisa Page emails that are heavily redacted. However, what does Strzok ask for? He asks for the FBI's investigation into Seth Rich. Are you telling me it's imagination land? That it doesn't exist? Is Santa Claus coming? Is he coming with the Russia hack? He's gonna fling it over. The pylon is going to show us how Poot managed to do the whole thing through Assange and WikiLeaks. Or is it what we've known all along? And it's been in our face. And nobody in the mainstream media, whether you consider them conservative or liberal media, will even touch it. This is 2020, man. The narrative is fully controlled on so many levels that it's up to us to try to take it back.
Or at the very least, make them have to respond in some way to the fact that we are trying to implement this change to the narrative to begin with.
I couldn't agree more. Guys, I've been doing this like all day, so I'm going to wrap it up on my end. I do want everybody to please go, once again, to Action4Assange.com. You can help them out there. You can go to their GoFundMe. I'm going to put that in my live chat. I'm also going to put in the YouTube channel where you can watch the rest of this amazing vigil as I go eat some chili and calm down from another red-faced, upsetting Action4Assange vigil. As I get a little emotional. But guys, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to do this. I'm so glad to have you, and I really hope that my audience understands how important you guys are and how they need to support you. And like I said, I just put the link in there. So does anybody want to wrap it up, say goodbye to my audience?
Yeah, Jason, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you to Jason's audience for watching us. Again, you guys can catch us every Wednesday evening at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Action4Assange YouTube channel. We will be covering the London full extradition hearing. I will be covering that. And my colleagues and my co-hosts will be holding peaceful demonstrations in DC. So again, do follow us on Twitter at action_4Assange. Jason, thank you so much.
Thank you, Taylor, Steve, Andrew, and Christy. And hopefully I will see at least some of you guys in DC next week. Hopefully we'll be able to make that happen. Thanks again. So guys, once again, you can follow them over on Action4Assange.com. You can check them out right now. You can see they're still streaming right there. Hopefully they have more than 29 viewers. I want to encourage everybody to check out my exclusive stuff. I did a exclusive breakdown of how I thought that Wired interview went over at rockfin.com. Rockfin.com/Jason Burmis. If you endorse me, you pay the $9.99 a month. It's better than a Patreon. It's better than a Subscribe Star because you get 20 guaranteed videos at least a month you don't get on this channel. Plus, you get everybody else's material. So it's not just Jason Burmis. It's like a real subscription service. It's all the stuff that's on Rockfin. So please go check that out. Remember, I am a documentary filmmaker. All my documentaries are free. Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, if you want to learn the truth about 9/11. Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, and Shade the Motion Picture. They're free right here as well. I want you to share them out. By the way, flick off if you're still there. I totally didn't thank you for that Super Chat sticker. You are the man. You continue to support this channel. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. Thumbs this video up, subscribe, and share. You know, I'd love to hit 40,000, but I'm not holding my breath anymore. I understand that, you know, the truth hurts sometimes, and people can't take it. And like I said in the broadcast, if we hit the 2,000 mark before Monday, I will rent a car. I will go to DC for at least a couple days, and we'll do some live streaming there with the Action4Assange crew. I absolutely love you guys. Remember, when I leave you here right now, go where I'm heading. I'm gonna give it to you right now. Here's the link. Go subscribe. Hit that bell, thumbs up, and support their cause because it's a real cause. I'll see you on the flip, guys. Thanks.